Brakken, I got tagged in Instagram the other day about something. And I don't think you got tagged in it because you would have brought it up to me. I believe.
No, then I didn't.
Nothing comes to mind, so you have not been tagged in this thing?
No, in fact, today I was working back through Instagram messages because I'm several days behind, and nothing. I didn't see myself tagged in anything, or at least nothing noteworthy.
This is to my personal account, and it was from a Bachelor franchise. We'll call it page or site, and it was the top 20 podcasts by past Bachelor participants.
Well, there's a niche market.
You would think. Okay. So they...
Although I suppose that's the route now, right? Get your 15 minutes of fame and then stay there somehow.
Right. I guess. Anyways, it's like, this is a thing, and somebody took the time to do this, and it was a well-thought-out post. It was based on written reviews and ratings on both Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Collective numbers rose you to your spot, and then filtered down number 1 through 20. 1 through 10 had their own slide, and then 11 through 20 were like honorable mention, listed out only in the comment section of the post. So my question: I
feel like I'm in the crowd at the Oscars now, waiting to hear the results of the vote.
So, well, it's not a vote. This is fact based on I don't know. I guess at least ratings and reviews. So we made the cut. Okay, maybe there's only 20 of us. I don't know. What number do you think we landed on this list?
Oh, I'm going to overthink this. I'm going to say that the most recent seasons have the most listeners because they're fresh and people have an audience right now. And then the biggest celebrities from older seasons do as well. So I'm going to say 14.
14. Not a bad guess.
Yes.
20th. We were the last ones to make the list. The last ones to make the list. Brag.
Okay.
And I believe we were 20th based on written reviews and ratings, because the first 10, it was outlined how many each had in order, and they went down every number, down the list. So we were 20th. And I can't really decide how I feel about it. I would say half of the people above us were some sort of Bachelor-related bullshit content, which is disgusting. Mm-hmm. Nobody should listen to that crap nor go on that show. And then the others were like somebody who's a lawyer and they have like some sort of lawyering podcast, and somebody like there was true professional type podcasts, and ours was one of them. But anyways, and so it had me thinking. First of all, I don't know if I should be proud or disappointed. I don't know how many past Bachelor contestants have podcasts. I commend whoever did their research to figure this out, because why would they know I and you had one? So they did their homework, clearly, went through all past contestants and figured it out, so props to them. But then I started thinking, well, I'm looking at our downloads. I'm looking at our ratings and reviews. There are so many of our listeners that have never once given us a written review or a rating that are listening right now, because we know our downloads, we know the people in our pools. We have 640 reviews on Apple Podcast, and we get way more listeners than that each week. So where's it all going? Help. Maybe we could be 19, Brakken. Could you imagine if we get some help from our listeners? Nobody's writing us rating.
Can you imagine the breakthrough we might have at 17 or 11? We might get our own spin-off TV show.
Imagine if we made the 10th slide next year when they do this, and we get our own little slide on this post. We would have made it. So anyways, birthday week next week for us. 20th on this Bachelor podcast list. A week and a half. Yeah, my birthday's next week.
Wow.
So could you come to bat for us, folks? Don't you feel embarrassed listening to us, guys and girls out there, that all we could do based on ratings and reviews was 20th against a bunch of loser idiots who went on a reality TV show and then started a podcast of their own? Please stop what you're doing and just give us a rating and review. I can't live in this shame. That's all I'm saying.
Wow. I'm going to ask them to pump the brakes on that because I don't know if I'm ready for paparazzi descending upon my life.
All right.
I don't think I can handle it.
There's only
you know how long it takes me to get screen ready? I can't just go out for groceries looking how I normally look.
It's more containing the size of your ego. You're going to need a bigger recording studio just to fit it in.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind that.
More shoes on the wall. Anyways, was just some. He'll move. All right, come join me at the lake. A house went up for sale just down the street the other day, Brakken.
I can't even imagine what lake property is now, post-COVID, post-boom.
We went by. We were curious the other day. Like, we had some bigger in our house or whatever. I was like, what is it? What are you guys selling it for? Oh, 1.25, nothing less. I was like, 1.25 what? Yeah, what you think it is? Nope. Nope. All right, so that's it. I just wanted to tell you that. We haven't talked about this. I wanted to maybe a call to action to our listeners. That's all.
This might be going on my LinkedIn.
20th.
Top 20 most successful Bachelor-related podcasts in the history of the universe.
Post-Bachelor contestant, not Bachelor-related. Now this show is Bachelor-related because we started talking about it, I guess. But for those of you who don't know, and we're going to move on, I was nominated by a friend back in 2010 to be a contestant. I didn't watch the show nor cared to be on it. I was 26, and I got the call. I was single. I decided to say yes and do it. So that was it back in 2010, 14 years ago. I'm sure there's some people scratching their heads right now wondering how this conversation came to be. And I did a few follow-ups as well, but we're not going to dwell on that. Do you have anything you care to share?
Well, I am.
We'll move on. What?
Yeah, for analytics now, I'm going to drop something Bachelor or Bachelorette every episode just to raise ourselves up in the analytic world. Get the algorithm to work for us.
Listen, there are more runners in America, everywhere in the world than there are people who watch The Bachelor. Our audience targeted at runners is broader than if you targeted a audience of Bachelor watchers, for sure.
But it's less thirsty and it's less desperate, and I think we need that passion.
I don't know. Have you seen people on Strava? Pretty thirsty. Pretty desperate.
True.
Yep.
That's true. Well, good intro. This is not what I was expecting today.
Yeah, and I have another story to tell you, but maybe I'll save it for the next one. It's this boneheaded thing I did here last weekend that I'm still cussing under my breath about.
No, not now. We need to know.
I've done enough talking. Maybe I'll sneak it in later.
I feel like we talk always about who has the highest percentage of word count on here, airtime. And for sure, for the first few years, I was way out in front. I'm the person who looks at the audio file throughout the editing process, and you can see how much dense matter exists compared to other people's. And it's been pretty darn close. I'd say within 5% on every episode recently. But early on, it was certainly skewed in my favor. But if it came down to who ends up looking like a fool more often than not, I think that also is skewed in my favor. I think I've had more embarrassing stories or boneheaded moves, and I think I just need a story out of you to help balance those scales. I'm the one who's always apologizing or having to re-clarify something I said.
But I'm always calling our listeners idiots. Think about that.
Yeah, but they respond to that.
That's weird. Okay, well, this is my last one, and then we'll start teaching you guys some things. It's just Brakken and I today, by the way, for the long run episode. We may go every other week with a guest and us. Curious if you guys have any feedback on that. But Brakken and I realize we have more to say yet. Shocking. No, I spent a day and a half last weekend hopefully some of you can relate to this. Spring has sprung here in Minnesota, and my lawn is wretched in places. I live on the lake, and part of the lawn slopes down to the lake. It doesn't hold water well, thus grass doesn't grow well. The neighbor did some construction on the other side of the road and ruined my grass on accident. A big spot about, 1,000 or 1,500 square feet. And there's a few places that have been driving me nuts. So I went to Menards, bought, it doesn't even matter, $300 worth of seeds, products, fertilizer, the whole deal. We teased it all up, raked it, did everything right, got the right little sprinkler rotating system, whatever. I'm going to do this. It's been bothering me since we moved in. Spent the better part of a day and a half doing all this, raking through it, seed spreading it, making sure everything was good and watered, teasing it up, then putting fertilizer on all of it, and I've been spending every day watering it, which I don't like to waste time, and that feels like a waste of time to me. Anyways, I just went to Menards and bought the most expensive fertilizer. I said, that's the bag. That seems like the good stuff. I'm going to buy that. I didn't look into it. I bought fertilizer that does not allow new seeds to germinate. It only feeds the existing grass and doesn't allow weeds or anything else to grow, anything new to grow. I thought fertilizer was fertilizer. I spent money and an entire day, and I put so much fertilizer on the bare stuff. For 6 months, nothing will germinate. I lost my entire summer and year to the wrong fertilizer and spent a whole day of my time. And it's just sitting on top with the seeds right now, just staring at me. And I literally just screwed up the whole year. 6 months. Nothing's going to germinate. I brought the wrong type. I need starter fertilizer, not for already established grass fertilizer, which kills everything else, including anything new. That's my boneheaded move.
That is my nightmare for Braden's karting. That I watch one YouTube video too few, and read one thread too few online on the next problem, and then I fix it the way it seems right, and then from the outside it's like, no, what that really did is it destroyed your vehicle. You just described my nightmare.
But my heart is involved. It's grass, and me and my wife just talk about it. We got to do something about that grass. And finally, we had the free day and a half. Anyways, but I can't fix it. I can't go fix it tomorrow. It literally says, "Do not put new seeds within 6 months of this product," in the tiny, tiny print amongst all the other millions of words on the back of the package. And so I can't fix my wrong. I just have to sit here all summer.
Can't scrape it up. Rototill.
It's already starting to dissolve into the soil.
Like that.
No, it's over. Game over. Checkmate for the next 6 months.
Rock garden time.
Yeah. All right. You guys have learned absolutely nothing about running so far. I'm sorry about that. But now I've aired my laundry.
Well, in a very smooth transition, let's learn about some running, Kirk. We've done a lot of very specific topics. How to run your best blank, how to run your best other blank. Speed work, even that, while it was a convoluted, murky topic, it was just about one topic, but it's all a bit heady. And so it's technical based, it's pace based, things like that. I want to spend an episode talking about kind of the real everyday hurdles, problems, or issues that runners are dealing with on a normal basis, when they're not trying to figure out how do I perfectly plan for the next race or sharpen, just everyday running issues that is a little bit more relaxing and less, if I get this right or wrong, I'm screwed. Just how do we work through some of these thought processes that normal runners go through? And what spawned this is there's a woman I work with, started with this year. Her name is Tara, and she is just really low maintenance, I would say. Just does the work. I just kind of like Corey the other day I talked about, just does the work, handles it, doesn't have a problem working hard. She is training for the Killington Ultra, and she lives in Florida, which you already know as soon as I say that what her training is going to look like. And it's not pleasant, right? Mm-hmm. Like, what would you do with that?
A lot of treadmill time, unfortunately. But yes, I mean,
treadmill,
sure.
Stairs, bridges, sleds, lunges. Yep. None of those things scream out like, let's have fun today.
Right. Okay.
So
I'm listening.
she's doing that. And she went back home to Philadelphia and ran a race. And it was a big race and super crowded. It's a famous race. And I'm not saying like full name and race so people won't go look her up, and I don't get the sense she wants people doing that. However, that's the setup here. She finished the race and said, I PR'd. And it was crazy amount of people there, more than I even thought. I zigzagged the whole race. And I recovered so well from the race. Even that day, I was still like not destroyed, and I wasn't dead at the finish line. And now it has me feeling kind of guilty. Should I have worked harder? And just that one question right there. I know we get that a lot, right? I'm not destroyed at the end. Should I have worked harder? Could I have? Did I leave something on the table? It kind of just like kicked off that the sparks of ideas for these are the type of things that don't deserve a whole episode necessarily. And they're more theoretical and just everyday. You don't need to find out right now so I can do my next block, but they're worth talking about. And I want to spend a day talking about that type of problem.
Yeah, I have 2 scenarios with current athletes that come to mind as well. And I actually love when an athlete asks me that question because it means things went well in general. And my immediate response to that, if somebody says that to me, is like, you better be very thankful for the day you just had. Because those good days, when you go out there and your fitness is good, your execution is good, a lot of times end just like that. Maybe could you squeeze a few seconds more out, but generally the best days on course in your running shoes, you end feeling like that, even when you've nailed it sometimes. Now, granted, I think it's more rare to nail a race and be like, I don't know where another second would have come from, versus nailing a race and being like, yeah, I think I still could have done better. So I think that is best case scenario. What do you think?
I agree. So if I look back at all my PRs and distances, like distances I've run multiple times, from 400 meters, 800 meters, 1500 meters, mile, 5K. I suppose I'll stop at 5K because everything beyond that, it's too infrequent or the terrain's too different. But if I look at those PRs there, my 400, my 800, and my 1500 cost me like an 80% physical toll after the race. And then the mile and the 5K nearly cost me my life. So 3 out of 5 races, I crossed the finish line just elated. I nailed that. I was accelerating all the way through the finish line, and I kept waiting for it to get terrible afterwards, enter that death zone, that twilight zone, and it didn't happen. But the other 2, it sure did.
Sounds like you were prepared for 3 out of 5 races is what it sounds like truly prepared.
Interestingly, the mile and the 1500 happened in the same season.
Okay. So what does that say?
I don't really have a great explanation for those other than sometimes the pacing or the day or the style of race or the temperature or your mindset or something. Sometimes it just clicks and your body does what it can do and it doesn't protest. Sometimes you're massively fit and you underpace a little early and you get to rip all the way through and you never fully get to that place where you tipped over. And some days you just have to earn every step of it. Like I couldn't have gone a second faster in my 5K and I couldn't have gone a second faster in my 1500 that day. But one of them crushed me and the other didn't. And the same thing with the mile. So I don't have a great physiological explanation other than sometimes you just have a great day and sometimes you don't ever tip. And when you tip, first stride versus middle stride seems to matter a lot.
If you generally run even splits or a progression throughout a race in which you're cutting down, you're very likely to feel that way when you finish. Could I have gone a little harder, a little earlier, and then hung on and pulled it off? Was I too conservative too early and leaving time on the table? Usually those races, you're pounding home. And I bet you this woman, did she pound home? Do you have any idea what the splits were? Did she do a negative split or an even split at worst?
Pretty even, a little bit of negativity in there, and the good negativity, and a huge crowd race, right? It's going to thin out as you go a bit. But yeah, that's part of it, I think, is how does your energy get, you might use 100% of your energy either way, but how it gets used does play into it.
Yeah. So is there an objective line in the sand? Can you say, like, how do I know if I could have gone faster? Like, how do you really know? Because the way this works, you watch, let's say Josh Kerr beat Jakob Ingebrigtsen in the 1500 at the World Championships the last summer. And you watch him finish, and Josh Kerr pounds through the line. He's full of breath, screaming at the crowd, still jogging around. He got it right on the right day. It came together as it should. And when it does, whether you're knowing ahead of time that's your plan or not, that's also how it feels. Josh Kerr probably was like, if I had to go faster, I probably could have. I timed my kick so late. If I went earlier, I could have ran faster. If I did this, he finishes with vigor, not on his back, gasping for air on the ground. You look at the guys behind him, and half of those people are rolling around in their own saliva and sweat on the track, like just happy to still be alive. But, like, the good days are like that. Like, you tell me Josh Kerr beating Jakob Ingebrigtsen didn't feel great the rest of the day, and he was completely fine, and he felt good for hours afterwards. And he's like, yeah, I think I even could have done better. He didn't have to. He won. But I feel like it always goes that way on those days. Yes, sometimes you can time it perfectly, but if you look at the best, I feel like that's how it goes. When people are well-trained and they're ready for the race at hand. Just how it is when it comes together.
It's the difference between humans and machines. That in a machine, you can take it right up to the fastest pace it can physically maintain and structurally hold together for, and just keep it there as long as possible. You don't have to build into the race other than like if there were tires to warm up or something like that. But with a human, the fastest way to run is to be accelerating towards the end. Every PR across the board comes with your last lap is your fastest of all your laps, and your last mile is your fastest mile. Outside of maybe the 800. The 800 meter is the tipping point where you go out faster than you finish. But what that leads to is it's almost never timed perfect in order to cross the line feeling like you ran out of energy at the line. You generally, if you get it wrong, you know. And if you have too much energy, there's that question of what if I had started earlier? But that's almost impossible to answer, because if you finish knowing I could have done 200 more meters at that pace, well, if you start 200 meters earlier, what happens? It's not like shuffling currency back and forth where I'm just going to take it from my checking to my savings. It doesn't translate like that. If you start 200 meters earlier, you might come up 100 meters short, because the emotional boost of accelerating past people is enormous. And so I don't think we can ever determine if I started harder, what would have happened. The safest thing to do is start cutting down a little quicker. But even that, you never really know. You kind of, like you said, you're just thankful that you didn't get it wrong.
Yep.
And that's sometimes the best we can do.
And you learn more on those race days than I think you learn more on a race day when you're wondering, like, I mean, you always learn, whether it goes poorly or great, but I think you learn more than if you implode 4 miles in and then have to hold on for dear life for 2 to 4 and you just go backwards. Like, okay, you learned your tipping point, you learned what not to do, but I'd rather learn what to do and how my body responds in this case. What is this woman's name again? First name?
Tara.
Tara.
Yeah.
The good news for
She
Tara.
might go by Tara. And I'm so sorry, Tara, if that's the case.
It's just a tough name. Tough name. It could go either way. It's not your fault.
I have 3 Taras and Taras that I know in my circle, and it just ruins me.
Well, I heard Brakken, I believe you were called in the podcast you were on recently, so even Bracken's tricky. No.
Yep.
That's what I heard. Anyways, Tara. Good news is that you're going to take this in the next time you tow a start line, and now you get to play a little bit. You get to tow your next line and say, all right, I'm going to test the waters and press a little earlier and see if I didn't work hard enough in the last race or I didn't just had a good day. And so then that's your next stepping stone to progression in speed and fitness. Well, okay, I ran fast, I PR'd, and feel like I maybe left something on the table. That's such a good spot to be in. Next time, you can, you've earned the right to risk it a little bit earlier and see what happens then. And so I just think it's a really good jumping point for whatever's next for her. And if you feel a little unsatisfied, like there was still more in the tank, good. Then you're also hungry for what's next, and you're still curious to find out where you really are. So could you have worked harder? Maybe. But either way, my rose tinted glasses are on when that statement is said to me.
Yeah, for sure. And I like what you said about I'd rather learn the good things in these kind of races than the bad, because I believe that to be true. I believe that blowing up teaches you things sometimes, but it teaches you the obvious. Like, duh, don't go out 30 seconds per mile too fast. But the only place it's really, really important to blow up, I believe, is the ultra marathon scene. It's important to have a blow up and survive it and figure out what you need to figure out. Feel the really bad. But it's not important to blow up in short races. It's better to be where she's at right now, which is micro changes. Now I'm going to try going out five seconds different the first couple miles, or I'm going to make my move 1 mile earlier. Or when I start cutting down, I'm going to cut down a little bit more aggressively. Those micro changes dial you in. You know you're close if you ran well and felt like you had something left. You're really close already, so you get to fine tune. You don't want to be like, all right, I knew this caused me to blow up halfway through. What do I need to do now to not blow up? And now I don't even know yet how it feels to close hard. So where do we go from here? You don't want confusion. You want to be able to just take one little variable and tweak it for next time.
Does Tara have another crack at a race coming up?
She will. This wasn't a focus for her. That was part of why it was so nice. Like, this isn't what we were training for at all. She got she's in good shape, so she PR'd, but like, it didn't even matter if she didn't.
Hey, you start training for mountain races, don't be surprised if all your flat PRs are broken en route. It is the way it works. I got the biggest jumps in fitness when I started training for mountains after flat running for years and years and years. Suddenly I'm like, whoa, why did my 5K get faster? I spend every other day on the ski hill. Duh. It's the missing component to my training. So it doesn't surprise me. It means she's got a good coach, Brakken.
I sure hope so. But we've talked about this for like 14 minutes now, and we haven't touched yet what my actual response was to her.
What was your response?
Which is kind of interesting, because these answers have all been the next step of the answer to her. But my initial response was very simple. It was two-part. First is that's similar to you. Great. Like, that's awesome. That's a sign of great fitness when it doesn't crush you and you do well and you recover well. You can't fake recovery. That means you're in good shape. And if you want to do another one, like, we have chances to do more if we want. It's there. You're going to have time. But the real crux of it was that we don't really have many hate yourself efforts. We don't have many empty, go deep into the well efforts per season. We don't have many efforts that absolutely destroy you down to the very cellular level of your soul. We only have so many of those to use. And you don't necessarily want to use one in April or early May when your goal races are pretty far away. So I am very happy with some maybe B+ efforts with A results early on in the season. That's just what the doctor ordered. You just don't want to waste, because you don't know when your last one gets there. You'd rather have too little of those efforts than too many, because too little, you still nailed it. Too many, and you're done now. You're done.
And when Brakken outlines, like, we only have so many of those inside out, nailed it, hate my life efforts in us per year or season. By so many, I'm going to put words in your mouth. 2, 4 at most. Like, literally, Brakken's not saying, oh, we got a couple dozen in us a year or a season, or, oh, I firmly believe our chamber has like 3 bullets in it, like, that we know are going to land exactly where they should.
Yeah.
And we have the mental and physical capability to show up on that day, ready to aim small, miss small, and nail it. And when those are used, they're gone until you take another reset, until you recover, recharge, do another whole build and sharpen and taper and all of that. I can tell you, you can't sell your soul to the devil out on course very many times a year. I can't think of a year, maybe in track when the races are shorter, right? In a younger year, there's more. But when we're talking like real life 5K and above, most of us are doing that. I mean, what do you think? I think the range is somewhere between, I think it's probably closer to, let's say, 4, maybe 4-ish. But I don't think more than half a dozen, not even close, a year. What do you think?
Yeah, they're not like concussions where you get like 6 or 8 freebies before they start to impact you.
Yeah. How many do you think you have?
Yeah. 7, 8. I'm right on the line where they're going to start mattering now.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
People wanna be a
science as far
hero.
as I understand it.
Yeah. People want to be a hero. Their workouts. Like if I can't function the rest of the day, I do my long run and then I can't participate in events that afternoon or evening because I'm so shot. I need to nap on the couch. Like people think like they didn't do their job if there's not some sort of misery or downfall after the workout or race. It means they like didn't do their part. Like it couldn't be further from the truth. If you're unavailable after workouts and races all the time, that's certainly going to be gone in your next big race or workout. And it's a compounding interest in the negative way, I think. There's a time and a place.
Yeah.
What did we say? We did a episode about like do big things or hero workouts. And what did we outline about like really going to the well? Every 3 or 4 weeks? Maybe in a workout saying, hey, I'm going to double down today.
I think I thought like 4 to 6.
Yeah. Not very often. No.
Yeah. And to your point, the shorter the race, the more you can do it. You know, I probably emptied my tank 10 times in track my senior year, maybe more. But 5K, I would say per season, you might get 4.
Yeah.
Half marathon, you might get maybe 3. You look at the marathon world, you get 2, maybe 3 a year. You can absolutely crush yourself before you lose effectiveness. It just doesn't work the way we'd want it to work, which is we see all these heroic efforts. And what the pros do that's unfortunate for us is they do heroic things without letting on what their actual damage meter is. I've always wished you could just see an effort bar above pros' head to see how they're actually working. You see Courtney Dauwalter go out and win multiple hundreds per year. But what's it costing her? What percent is she working at? Just because she crushes people and breaks the course record doesn't necessarily mean that was a 100% effort. Like mentally it might have been, or physically it might have been, but how often do the two align? We're never really sure. So people oftentimes treat races like races and workouts like workouts, which on paper makes a lot of sense. But if you got done with let's say a 5K paced workout, and you're like, man, I came up, I think I had 1 rep I could have done better. Was that a waste of a workout? You'd look at it and think, I got a great workout, but the good thing is I can do this again in a few days and I'm back to training. Or if you crushed yourself in the workout, you're more likely to think, I think I did 1 too many and it might have just cost me a week of training. But then we get to races and we don't keep that same mentality going where it's like, it was such a great effort. I can't train for 2 weeks. Like, I did it, man. But you forgot that it's the same consequence. Whereas if you under race a little bit, best case, we're just back to training again. Fantastic. You got a great stimulus. Now let's get back to work.
I brought up like Josh Kerr and Jakob Ingebrigtsen just a bit ago about that race. And what you're outlining so I consume a lot of track and field and run content on YouTube on my cross-training days, on my incline treadmill days. I'm in the know now. Brakken used to be the guy who knew all the things, and now I'm spending more screen time, and so like while I'm training. And now I think I'm in the world as much as you are now. I'm invested, and now it's fun to keep
Love
up.
it.
Anyways, what I'm getting at is you look at, so this is an Olympic year, and trials are in June? Olympics are in August, let's just say. And you've got, I think of like that crew of 1,500 meter runners, Kerr, Ingebrigtsen, Jared Naguse, Cole Hawker, Jake Whiteman, that whole crew. And you say, all right, like you see Josh Kerr breaking world records and running hard and winning world indoors. You see Jared Naguse chasing fast times, rabbiting some of his teammates like Ali Hoare in the last 1,500 qualifier they tried. Some things like this, guys really racing hard, right? Taking the spotlight right now. And you can see the strain on their face. Grant Fisher as well, if you look at the 5K. And then you think about guys in the dark, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, who we've hardly seen much, Jake Whiteman coming back from injury, Cole Hawker in and out, but not over-raced. And I think, all right, Kerr has great momentum going from winning the world championships in the 1,500. But like, how many arrows has Kerr shot already this year? And when it comes time to aim small, miss small, is he out of those bullets come Olympic finals in the 1,500? And is Jared Naguse going to be torched? Because they're still months out, and they've used these arrows we're talking about Now, or these shots we're talking about now, the 1500 is very different than going out and nailing marathons, and it's very different than. So can it be done? Probably, but like, tell me when you watch that and you see people pushing hard, and who knows, he could have taken a down week in April and has a new rebuild, and he's going to be great. I don't know these things, of course, but like. That's what my mind thinks about right away. I say, okay, fine. Jake Whiteman can sleep. Yeah. He's only building the right direction. Same with a couple other guys, right? Jakob coming back from injury. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. And that's part of the challenge of being the reigning world champ is that you're expected to be places now. And they're giving you a lot of show money to get to those races. And it's hard to say no. And athletes believe their results. As an athlete, you pop a race and you're like, yup, that's me. And then you feel great on another one and you think, yep, that's who I am now. And it's hard to see impending doom. Now, they all have great coaching staff around them. But the comfort I take is that they're not racing their primary races. Kerr has raced a bunch, but it was half marathon, like a 10-mile, 2-mile record, 3K indoor. Like he was racing over his distance still. 800. So my hope is that he was doing a lot of long strength-based workouts, and he's not yet dipping into the stuff that affects that cellular depletion at like a really visceral level. That's my only hope, and that's what I would think. That's how they would be planning. I mean, they have access to the top everybody. I'm sure that they're on top of this, but at the same time, that post-Olympics and post-World Championship hangover does become real because you race because you get money. And you get money, and so you race. And eventually things do come due.
Does that ring a bell with your early Spartan years by chance, Brakken?
It does, but unfortunately I wasn't making quite what they're making for appearance fees.
I have 3 athlete scenarios I want to bring up today, by the way. As we're talking through this, so we'll move to the next. But me and my wife were watching YouTube videos in bed, and it said Jakob Ingebrigtsen's cockiest interviews. It was a compilation, and it was like 10 minutes straight of Jakob Ingebrigtsen just spitting out confidence is what it was, right? Like, what do you mean I didn't have a rabbit today? I am the rabbit, right? Like, be better, people. Like, if you can't keep up with me, like, that's on you, and yada, yada. And then I was like, okay, so here's the battle. I'm trying to teach her. Like, here's the battles. It's how it's shaping up for the Olympics. She doesn't keep up with any of this. And after watching Josh Kerr interviews.
And can I interrupt and just say credit to Jess? She's laying in bed watching Jakob Ingebrigtsen interviews. Like, that's a keeper.
I slightly forced it upon her. She wasn't enjoying the book she was reading on her Kindle. And anyways, and after it all, she's like, well, I don't like Josh Kerr. I like Jakob Ingebrigtsen. She's like formulating these opinions and getting a little invested. And she said, that's not cocky. That's just confidence. And I don't like the way Josh Kerr carries himself. And I can take her Lidier Nagoose and whatever. It was just interesting. So I'm trying to suck her into like caring. It's working. Yeah. Do you ever try to suck? Do you ever try to suck your wife into like this world of yours?
No. What I have learned with her is that if it pertains to me, she'll find a way to get interested in it. And if it doesn't, then it's either going to take hold or it won't. But the best thing I can do is just have it on screen. And if she drifts in and watches, great. Like her with World's Toughest this year. By the end of the weekend, the whole family's watching and invested. And it helped that like Callie and Ian Caskey and some people they know are out there. But no, I can't. She will tune out instantly if I put on an interview or something like that. Like she's given up on Race Brain. She doesn't listen anymore. She's like, I love you, but I'll listen to the first 10 or 15 minutes for the comedy hour and the rabbit holes. But as soon as you just start talking hybrid and OCR and drafting and stuff, I just like, you couldn't pay me to stay awake.
Does she listen to The Running Public?
Every episode.
Lovely. Jess has started to recently again as well. Okay, so I'll bring up one of my athlete scenarios, and these are all like tougher lessons learned. I'm going to say 95% of my athletes are kicking butt and nailing it. And of course, we could give credit to all of those, in this case with your athlete, Tara. But I want to talk about the struggles a little bit. I have an athlete. And all 3 of these examples, we'll take one at a time and we can go back and forth. And we don't need to spend an ornament amount of time on each. But is in that whole, like, my hip hurts this day, and so I'm going to not run, and I'm going to cross train. Or I did 20 minutes of my run and then decided that was enough versus doing 60. And I had to skip my long run because I just wasn't quite sure. But I'm going to try again Monday, right? I'm going to try again Monday. And I'm going to go run again. And I said something to her via text yesterday. And I finally had, over years of experience with injury, come to this conclusion. But the text was basically like, I think you need to do one or two things. You either need to beat this thing into submission or you need to wave the white flag. But the training like you're doing builds shitty fitness. And you're not going to be happy with your race results when the race day comes. You either need to wave the white flag. We either need to do the training we need to, or at least 80% of it, and find out. Otherwise, we are just sitting here in quicksand, just biding our time until we die a slow, unhappy death when it matters. And so many people hold on to that hope of like, I'm just going to cross train a little bit. And pretty soon their training looks so far from what it should have, but they got a race in 2 months. And so they try to patch job things. But every puzzle piece doesn't fit where it should anymore. And suddenly you're looking like, what is that? What have we created? What have we been doing for 4 weeks? When you could have taken a week off then, we could be back up to where we need to be or do whatever. And instead you just keep kicking the rock one further down the road on the injury front. Just keep it in play, keep it in play, keep it in play. And pretty soon you got shit fitness and you're not happy with your performance. And so that part of the conversation I think is very interesting because a lot of us deal with niggles and naggles. And you should battle through it. And I'll cross train today and try tomorrow. Do a little bit of that. Of course, you need to learn what's going on and what you can handle. But at some point, you either say, it's either going to do what I tell it to do or I'm surrendering. And so I don't have to live in this gray zone anymore because that builds gray fitness, and gray fitness sucks. So what are your thoughts to that?
Yeah, when you get to that spot where it's nickeling and diming you, you're just not banking anything anymore. And our optimism in our fear of losing fitness is probably responsible for more blown races than anything else. Like if I can get through this, that phrase, as soon as I hear I'd like to try again, that's when I know it's about time to make a decision. It wasn't quite ready, but it will be soon. I can feel if I just blank, I started, it didn't work, but I'm going to try again Monday. That I'm going to try again is almost always the signaler of, I know it's not going to work, but I'm holding out hope. And I'm all for hopes and dreams, but not injuries. It does not apply to injuries. Injuries don't care about hopes and dreams. If that's what we're reduced down to, then we know it's time to pay it now. Almost never do I think it's worth pushing through unless it's something that can be pushed through, unless it's at the end of a season. At the very end of a season, and I've just got to hang on for blank. That's one thing. Hanging on is different than holding on. And it doesn't sound like it should be different. They're just two words for the same thing. But I did this one race. I have one more. I've just got to hang on for 2 more weeks and I'm good. Rather than if I can just hold on and keep this thing at bay for 6 or 8 more weeks. You can't hold it back for too long. As soon as you're getting nickeled and dimed, you realize I'm never getting ahead of this. Shut it down now. Otherwise, it's going to be with you all the way through to the end of the year. You will get there with less fitness than you want to. And now you have to start the rehab. And you're starting rehab off of depleted fitness already. And it's just, you get back to way up.
I agree with everything you just said. But you have people who, God, you should not be running and you're running right now. They dig themselves into a further hole, right? They're over aggressive.
Yep.
And then on the other side of the coin, and this is this woman, she's ultra cautious. And anything, and I don't think it'll hurt her feelings hearing this, because she's had a past injury history and something did take her out years ago. And, and so then you have the other one who's any sign is run. And by run, I mean run away from running, right? Nope, not doing that again. And so I said, go tomorrow, go run, do it. And her text this morning says along the lines is, it hurt in the beginning and then didn't hurt at all in the middle and end, went 40 minutes. It's an encouraging text, right? Is it bark or is it bite? Which one is it, right? And most people are going to disagree when I say beat it into submission or not. Like, I truly believe, like, if you can't train the way you want to, or at least 85% of the way you want to, then, like, pull the plug, fix it, and come back to it, revisit again. Because I've done it. I've been the person who kicks the injury rock a little further down the road, and pretty soon I'm only running 15 miles a week instead of 50, and I get to a race, I'm like, I'm not prepared, and I have no confidence, and like, what am I even doing here? Where I might have been better off pulling the plug, seeing PT, getting rehab, and then putting together 8 decent weeks of workouts and probably ending up on race day better off. You understand the sentiment of what I'm saying, and nothing is ever clear.
Yeah.
But it's just one of the things you got to waffle with sometimes. And I have 2 athletes sort of in that boat, one with a groin issue, one with a hip issue. They both really fall into that camp. One is more aggressive, meaning like he wants to run every day, and he's like, I'm going to try, I'm going to go. And the other one's like, I'm going to be so careful. So anyways, I just thought that was worth talking about because at some point we all have things like that pop up.
Yeah.
And I've been dealing with
for these people.
Yeah. I've been dealing with my knee to the point where I'm like, Brakken, I might have a torn meniscus. I don't know what's going on. I said, well, I'm going to run on it, and it's either going to get better or not. I'm going to avoid the things that hurt it, like pivoting and lateral, or like I'm going to have to go see somebody. And guess what? It's slowly getting better while I'm using it exactly as I want to. And I needed to find out. I either needed to make it worse, or I needed to train and prove to me that I can train on it as I want. And it's proven, luckily for me. Otherwise, like with my knee hurting, I could have taken the last weeks or month off since my last race and been so scared of it, right? And been in the same place as before. So it's cloudy, but you get what I'm getting at.
Well, it is cloudy, and there's no clarity to it because our experience shapes how we perceive the present. Yeah. That's just how it works. What we've experienced in the past directly impacts how we perceive what we're experiencing right now. And as someone who has dealt with mental scar tissue about my physical scar tissue, I understand that toughness, that tough spot to sit in. And I've talked about it on here, where I'm hyper vigilant now and hyper aware, and I'm hyper reactive to certain feelings in certain areas of my body.
Yep.
And as an injured athlete, all you think about is feeling healthy. But what you forget about is how often you feel weird things when you're healthy. And most of the time they just go away. It comes on quick, it goes away quick, and it's just like, that was strange, but I know it couldn't have been anything. But once you've been damaged in the past, now you assume everything's the start of something. You read too far into the tea leaves, and you have these injury echoes afterwards. Like, it still aches in that area, even though it's fine. Or it is about to be fine, but there's just little remnants that have to be knocked loose. Literal scar tissue sometimes that is going to cause you an issue until it is broken up to a higher level. And it's a fight and it's a struggle, and you have to find some logical progression. This is the only way I've gotten through this at all. And I don't know if I'm fully through this or not, but there has to be some sort of trusted step forward, a progressive in nature step where you say, I believe A to be true and B to be true and C to be true. And by the time I get to C, I suddenly feel like, hey, D is about to be true as well. Like, there's just progression through. And whatever that process is that gives you kind of like training wheels on until you can take the training wheels off, that seems to be the only way past this mental scar tissue. Some people, you can just tell them you have to jump in, and that's great. And others, they're not going to believe it until they see a sequential improvement. But the tricky part is not letting them back down the stairs when the next sequence of it causes a little bit of another mental scar tissue issue to pop up.
Yeah, you're outlining like a decision-making process, making a decision. And instead of sitting in the gray, like maybe not, like sitting in that gray zone, like maybe I will, I don't know, maybe I can, maybe I can't, I don't know. And then sitting in that, like maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I can, maybe I can't. Just sitting in that, never going forward or backwards, just like sitting there. Like, so like have some sort of decision-making process or make a decision. You know what? Screw it. I'm pulling the plug and I am resting. Or screw it. I'm committing to this week of training and I'm going to find out. What I'm outlining, and I hope you agree with me, is like, that whole gray area is okay to sit in for a week or 2 or 3, like when you're feeling out this new problem. It's not like you can't sit in there for a little bit. Of course, you're learning like what's happening. You're experimenting. You're trying to figure it out. But like it's when that is where you're living for weeks and then months on end. That's what I'm outlining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be one of my more off the wall analogies here, Kirk. But we are rabbit owners now. We have a Holland Lop that resides in our house, and it is honestly the best pet I could have ever asked for. It doesn't smell, it's potty trained, it doesn't bark, it doesn't scratch, it doesn't chew what it's not supposed to. It's free reign. It just goes where it wants to go. And
potty train a rabbit?
This species, this breed, you can, yeah, very easily. It took 2 days.
Huh. Okay. The more
it's phenomenal. Anyway, I'm not a pet person, and this pet has just like owned me now. But when it gets spooked, it goes into its pose where it's leaning forward and its ears are out, and you can just see the next thing it hears. If it is at all reminiscent of danger, he is going to blast out of here and sprint under the couch and hide. It doesn't matter if it's the same noise he would normally hear on someone entering the room. As soon as he is on high alert, he hears what he's expecting to hear, and he is gone. He interprets it as danger, and he is gone. And that's the way we are as athletes. We hear these noises in the room when we're just training, and we're like, I wonder what that is. I'm gonna look around and find out. Or it's going to make its way in here at some point, and I'm going to see if it's someone I know or not. But as soon as we're injured, our ears are up, we're frozen in place, and we're just anticipating that the next thing I feel is doom and gloom, and I am out of here. I'm pulling back from this workout. And we have to find whatever that thing is that gets us out of high alert zone into I am cautiously aware at best.
Good bunny analogy. Didn't know I needed one.
It's my first I've ever done, Kirk. Felt good.
I was told that you were asked what your spirit animal was, and you said a cheetah. Is that right?
Yeah, I was not prepared for that question at all. Not that anyone needs to prepare me for it, but I don't think I've been asked about animals since I was like 7. Like, hey, bud, what's your favorite animal? And when I was 7, my entire life, I was obsessed with cheetahs. And we were at the very end of the interview, and I'd kept him, like, as I do, like 30 minutes longer than what he was hoping to do. And so I just decided to shorten the process and be like, yeah, cheetah.
Okay.
Even though it's not my spirit animal, it was just my favorite.
Okay. I had some follow-up questions, but we don't have time for that. So why don't we bring up a new situation? Do you have another one you want to talk about?
No, let's go to your third. You said you had 2 or 3. That was 2.
That was 1.
Oh, that was a 2-parter? Both sides of the same coin?
Yeah. But I can bring up another one.
Better keep going with yours.
All right. Another scenario. I'm gonna name this person, and he's not going to care. We've had him as a guest on our podcast. Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, is training for Grandma's Marathon. He's actually a really good follow on social media. Every day he posts, like, this is my route to running a sub 3-hour marathon at Grandma's. That's his goal. And he's put that out in the world for the last 6 months. He's doubled or tripled his following because people are invested in his journey. He's a dad of 2 or 3, I think 3 now, full-time job, the whole deal. Okay? He's put out in the world, this is my journey to sub 3. And we had a call yesterday. Eric and I talk every other week on a face call. He's my most frequent face called athlete. We talk every 2 weeks. And he had a tough bout where he got put on 3 rounds of antibiotics. He's still not feeling well. He, in his eyes, lost 4 weeks plus of training, maybe 2 months in whole. He feels like hasn't been. He's been able to show up, but he's just taken a hit, right? And not much you can do about it. And so we're talking about the workouts coming up. I have him doing a lot of float stuff. I have him doing a lot of longer, like, let's figure out where we're at for the marathon type stuff, right? And setting expectations. And it reminds me of a conversation we had with Tyler German a long time ago. There's 2 schools of thoughts when it comes to an A race. And it's, okay, this is my goal pace and goal time, and I am going to run that pace no matter if it kills me in training, and I'm going to learn it and feel it and live it, and I have no choice. Or I'm going to show up and do these workouts and take what my body gives me. And if it's slower, so be it. And if it's faster, great. But, like, fitness will be fitness on race day, and I can't shove 3 hours down my throat if I'm not in 3-hour shape. Maybe I'm in 255 shape, but maybe I'm in 315 shape. Anyways, and so we were talking about sort of putting a square peg in a round hole, being like, he has a mile on, mile float workout this weekend. And he had a 5-4-3-2-1 float ladder on Tuesday. He's got 2 float workouts in 1 week, which is sort of a dick move on my end. But it's like, okay, this is the pacing I ran for the ladder. Now what's the pacing for my mile on, mile float workout? And should I target marathon pace or should I just run what comes to me? And he feels he's behind. And I told him, I said, Eric, you're not in shape to run 3 hours right now. Will you be in 7 weeks? Maybe. But right now, it's a fool's errand. But that's okay. We have time. Let's figure out where we're at. And he knows this. And he's been vulnerable on social media about it. And people are, again, invested. So before I talk any further, what would you say to somebody in that position? 7 weeks out. A marathon's a big race. He's splitting hairs on the approach to his big quality sessions and quality long runs, which matter. They're very important. He's in the critical zone right now. These next 4 weeks are very important of training. What do you say to that athlete?
Oh, I just used to be more about that race pace and date pace, like balancing those two, the pace I can run right here on this date and the pace I'm going to run on race day and all that. And I find it to be a negative spiral circle. Negative spiral? I don't know. Maybe that
you spiral in a circle.
You spiral negatively with that. Best thing you can do is hit it. Worst thing you can do is come up short and then continue coming up short because our fitness doesn't build that way. It doesn't progress linearly. So we cannot say that I'm going to be able to do this on this day and then a little bit faster this way and a little bit faster this day and eventually I'm just going to be there. That's not how it builds. If it gets there, it's going to get there. And you don't know always when it's going to get there. And sometimes it happens all at once and sometimes not at all. But stressing yourself and killing yourself over a specific pace before you're ready to run it is not helpful. So that's where I'm going to start with on that one. But then the second part is that I don't believe pace work, true dialed in pace work, matters until you're closer to your ceiling. And your ceiling doesn't have to be your lifelong ceiling, but your fitness ceiling for that season. Like towards the end of track season, when you've run 5 miles already and you're trying to PR the mile, running some specific pace work is probably imperative at that time. But training for 6 months to hit a sub 3 hour marathon, we have no clue if that's physiologically appropriate or not. So forcing a pace really doesn't have any logical benefit, only potential not good pieces mentally. So no, I'd be entirely on effort and heart rate and just say, if we're missing engine and speed anyways, we're just going to focus on that side of the coin. And if we arrive with it, fantastic. And if we don't, you're at least going to be in a positive headspace when we're done with these workouts.
That would have been really a good thing to say to him. I didn't say that exact thing.
But it's not what you said.
No, it's not far off, actually. And he's open. Yeah. He's not like, I need to run 3 hour pace in workouts or whatever. He was posing an open question. Like, It's not like he feels the need to go do it. But you're absolutely right. So you're saying attempting to run goal pacing for something like a marathon, when you know kind of you're not ready for it, you're saying more emotionally than anything, it's going to be detrimental to your confidence and to your belief. Is that partially what you're saying?
Yeah, I believe one way or the other. Yeah, if you're a stud runner at lower distances, marathon pace is going to feel really easy in training. And it's going to raise your confidence too high, and that's when the wall crushes you. And if you're coming in building from the other direction, which is I can't run marathon pace for longer than 8 to 10 miles right now, but I know I just need some staying power, and I think it can happen eventually. Well, running 8 to 10 miles at it is only going to depress you right now. Yeah. So I'd almost just like completely forget about marathon pace for the time being and work on the other surrounding pieces. And we'll come back to that when we need it.
So I probably gave him a middle ground answer from what you're saying. And then the other end, which is like, go run pace all the time. Like, screw it. We'll shove it down your throat. And if it doesn't come together, fine. My end up suggestion for this week's, he was asking particularly about, it's a 2 mile warm up into a mile hard, we call it. I gave him pace instructions on it, but a mile hard, we'll call in quotes, and then a mile float recovery, 1 minute slower than your hard mile. So if you go run your hard mile at 6 minutes, I want you to float recover at 7. Okay, which actually sucks a lot the first half of that mile float, and then you'll get comfortable the second half of the float before the next one starts. It's actually a more approachable float workout than anything. He's going to repeat that 5 times, and then he's going to do a 2-mile cool down. He's going to get a total of 14 miles in. He went 19 last weekend for a steady long run. This weekend, it's a quality long run. So you're following, right? Mm-hmm. Three flat is roughly 6:52 pace, I think, right? Something like that, 6:50 per mile. Ish, just under 7. So what I've decided with some of these sessions with him, because he needs to feel his pacing out too. He's not quite sure, right, about some of the pacing. I said, great, we're gonna go. You're gonna be so far off marathon pacing to start. We're gonna go 7:20, 8:20, 7:10, 8:10, 7 flat, 8 flat, and then from there, if you can hit 6:50, 7:50, and cut down. You're going to feel really good because you're going to have spent some time at or faster than marathon pace without ruining your workout before it got started. This is how we have a productive session. We're going to treat it like a cut down. You don't need to go out and go 6:50, 7:50 out of the gates. Let's go 7:20, 8:20, 7:10, 8:10. And he's really good at nailing paces once they're decided upon. And so I thought, well, to build confidence, we're going to do it. The goal is to get close, but you're going to know if we need to just stop the progression there and finish at that effort. That's okay if you stop short. But let's work you into it and find out instead of tip over early and then learn very little and not even get a productive session in. So my advice has now been, at least these next 2 weeks, we had a couple workouts we were outlining. Let's do the progression style. You're going to start with something you know you can handle, and we're going to progress and see how uncomfortable or comfortable the actual pacing feels. But we're not going to spend the whole workout there. We're going to get there. So maybe I split the difference, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, probably. But maybe it was just a more detailed version of what I was saying, which is we're going to muddy the water a little bit by not letting you just stare at marathon pace in the face and get mocked by it. We're going to dabble in and out and above it and work down to it. And you're just going to get your engine as primed for this as possible without depressing you.
I mean, that's really it, isn't it? And I run under the belief, and I think you do too, if I'm erring on any side, I'm not going to shove goal pace down my throat. Like, I'm going to run the workout. I'm going to execute it to the best of my ability. And then I'll look back at the data and say, okay, what does it tell me? But it's not like I'm going to go out and run right on pace out of the gates. I'm going to feel it out as any runner should do. Get in touch with your body, the signals it's telling you mid-workout. And then you can comb through the heart rate and the pacing when it's done. But in the moment, like, I think you're better off like feeling your body. You can figure it out later as you get closer. And then the second thing I told him was like, well, listen, like, he's half ready to throw in the towel. He's like, I don't know, man, if this is happening. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know either. However, we have 7 weeks. You're going to get good training in between now and then. If you can stay healthy, that would be helpful because he'd been chronically sick, a lot of kids at home, that sort of thing. He lives at 5,000 feet. You're coming down to literal sea level. And we have a taper in play here. So are we going to have to close our eyes and throw the dart at the dartboard? Maybe, but people have hit bullseyes that way. And so who knows? Like, you want to keep, as a coach, you want to keep the rose-tinted glasses on and the realm of possibility open. But you also have to talk the reality of the situation. And so it's like, maybe if we can get somewhat close, there's always a chance because of the taper and you're coming down in elevation. And who knows? He's gotten the time on feet in. He's done his 20-mile long runs. He's got 22 this next weekend. It's one of his big last true long runs. I'm sending him for 22. It's a long one. Like, he's got the durability. He can run long. So maybe. So anyways, that's how we left that conversation, which I just think a lot of people are starting to thinking goal pacing versus workouts. How do I approach it?
Yep.
It's top of mind for a lot of people.
Well, and I think what would you call them? The running entertainment magazines and websites, the Runner's World, sometimes Outside Magazine, sometimes not. The ones that are just doing like the how to run your best 5K with these 3 workouts. They give you not clickbait, but sometimes clickbait-ish articles that are forced to make gross oversimplifications in order to make it palatable for just the casual runner. That's where things like Yasso 800s come from. Predict your marathon time with these 800s. You don't hear that from the pros. When the pros talk about, I believe I'm in 210 shape or 215 shape, it's because they've hit a couple workouts that other people have hit and then run this, or they know that if I'm in blank shape, combined with doing my long run like this, I can probably run about this for this marathon. It's not, I went out and hit this predictor workout and I know that to be true or not to be true, because you have people jump up to the marathon without ever having run a step at marathon pace. They're basing it off 10K and threshold work and some quality long runs. And they're like, I'm pretty sure I'm in 211 shape right now. That's what I'm going to go out in Boston. So what the everyday commoner does, and I say commoner affectionately, that's us to some extent, is they put too much stock in predictors, in certain workouts or certain paces that say this is what you're going to be able to do, rather than saying, here are the characteristics I need to have in order to be able to run my potential goal pace. Mm-hmm. I don't hear a lot of pros get caught up in, I did this one workout that I read about and it predicts I can do blank. It's usually my coach took a look at these workouts and right now he thinks I'm in this kind of shape. Mm-hmm. So rarely, like, we have marathoners in our circle that are trying to qualify for trials or trying to qualify for the, to be a podium contender at a big marathon. And never do I hear them say marathon pace is going really well for me right now. So I think that should just be a reassurance for people that the top end don't worry too much about their marathon pace until marathon day.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And you've seen, gosh, how many of the pros like Hassan Safan Safan Hassan. It's like Tara Tara. It's, you never know.
I feel so bad. We've been working together for months, but we've only talked 2 times face to face. So I just keep reading her name and I don't remember if she's one of the Taras or Taras in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to ask her before this goes up and prepare her.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to have to prepare Eric that I'm talking about him. But I was going to say Safan Hassan, a number of others have recently just stepped up to the marathon, being predominantly 1,500 to 10K runners, and they have no idea. And then they go out and win by a minute and a half and run a top 20 time in the world of all time. And you think they went out and be like, yeah, I'm definitely dialed for 2:11:50 right now. Like, she's like, no, I'm going to put my running shoes on. I'm going to go out run and just see where it lands. And those people at the top are so good at understanding their body, listening to cues, knowing when they can press and when they need to back off, sitting just below the tipping point. And if they feel like they're breaching it, throttle down again so they can just continue on, effectively. That's the big separator there. And I think, I hate to say it, but I think typically people who are less in touch with their bodies in relation to their effort need to fixate on the pacing.
What pace should I run?
It's a governing source for them, right? And then they don't have to worry about body's cues. They just
clean.
My watch needs to tell me. Right.
Yep.
But I think where the pros excel beyond you and me and our listeners for the most part. I mean, so I'm putting us in this camp. Like, they're so in tune that goal pacing, who cares? I'm just going to listen. And I'm going to respond in the moment to what my body's telling me. There's a big difference there. And I think some of us are great at it and some of us aren't. It's just the way maybe we're wired. I don't know. I mean, don't you have athletes who chronically misfire on their workouts? And then you have athletes who nail it every time. Like, is that just the way we are? Can that be fixed? I don't know. It's just interesting to me.
Speaking of athletes, so Rob Pettyjohn's a guy that I've worked on and off with for several years now, and he's gearing up for High Rocks Age Group World Championships, and he's just an absolute monster, but he has no endurance background. He's a basketball player. He's 6'5". He did not spend his life becoming a metronome, but the man is a freaking metronome. Every workout he sends me, let's say we're doing step down thousands. Or we do this one, it's 2,000 meter row rest, 1,500 rest, 1,000 rest, 500 rest. And he's going 202, 2 flat, 158, 150. Like, It's like you just put him into a gear and he just can do that. He can do that on the run. He just is where I tell him all the time, like, you were meant to find endurance early and you didn't. Like, you were born for this. He was geared to be an endurance machine. He can just do it without a lifelong accumulation of those miles to get to that point. Some people have it, some people don't. But the commonality between people who are new to a distance is, what pace should I start at? What pace should I be targeting here? And I can confidently say that if I were to train for a marathon, let's say I dedicate all summer to trying to run a fall marathon and try to run the fastest I could run. Of all the paces I touch upon, from aerobic running to threshold running to speed work, the one I would spend the least amount of time performing and thinking about would be marathon pace. I would be trying to make my threshold as fast as possible and effortless as possible. I'd just try to bring the biggest gun to the gunfight, and then wherever they set me up is where I'm shooting from. But I just want to get there and have fitness, and then I'm going to run the stride and effort that feels appropriate. But I will probably do no more than like single-digit runs in a 6-month buildup, specifically targeting a marathon pace. Almost all of it will be faster or significantly slower.
And truth be told, let's talk the intent of the mile on, mile float. My full intent was for him to run those on miles faster than marathon pace and his float miles slower than marathon pace. And then you ebb and flow in and out of pacing, right? My goal wasn't, so to your point, I agree with you. I'll have very few where it's like, you're going to go run marathon pace for 60 minutes. That's your goal today. Just feel it out. Like 1-2 of those workouts maybe. But mostly it's over-unders and mostly overs or unders, meaning like, we're going to get you comfortable running a little faster. And then hopefully on race day, when we get into it, you're going to be like, okay, I'm in control. I'm running pace and in control. That's very important. So that was my intent with that workout. Now we have to reassess at points, but all right. So do you have another athlete? Do you have any athlete? You said you had some scenarios. You have another one that comes to mind?
I have a follow-up to that, just like my bow tie for that.
Sure.
And that is for Eric and for other people out there preparing for a marathon. The way marathons go is that you either set a goal that your fitness far exceeds well before a race day, and you show up knowing my goal is to run 3 flat. And I am for sure in like 250 shape right now. and you reassess along the way, or you set a goal for 3 flat. And if you're able to do it, you may not know until race day or the last few weeks. Like marathon builds, either fill in your weaknesses and you're way better than you thought they would, and your goal was a little cautious and you just exceed your goal really early, or they don't really come together till the end because you feel tired and sluggish throughout the build. Very rarely do you think I'm progressing perfectly for this build. You're either I'm ahead of schedule or I am behind. Very few times you will feel on it the whole time. And so you can take comfort in that fact that most people get to the start line not knowing yet if it's a realistic goal or not.
Yeah. Rarely do people set a goal that's like, yes, that's attainable. And yes, I'm already on track. It's either a little quicker or a little conservative to save. Rarely, I agree, is it like threading a needle with the initial goal setting, right?
Yeah.
It's just not. Yeah. Okay. So do you have, now that the bow tie is on that, do you have anything? I have one more example, and I don't think we'll need to spend a lot of time on it, but I brought up 2 now. So.
Okay. I have one. Let's see if we get to it. Let's go to yours, and then we'll wrap up with mine if we have time.
Okay. This has to do with FOMO, wanting to race it all. We had how long ago was that episode? How to be good at everything. We did that a month ago, maybe.
A month, yeah.
So this person doesn't want to necessarily do everything. She wants to do every ultra. Okay, which can be a problem.
Yep.
Okay. She's developed and shown some of the best fitness in her entire life, and it's come through in shorter distances. I coach both her and her husband. They're fantastic athletes. They are great students. I really enjoy working with them. Talked to her husband yesterday. Talked to her last week. But damn it, there's a line, right? So without giving away too much information on who these people are, who this person is, let's just say 100-mile attempt for the first time happened a few weeks ago. We knew her training was great. She got in everything I asked. She remained healthy. When it came time for the last 25 miles, she couldn't run. She broke down. Mm-hmm. She pulled the plug with 25 to go. It was a 25-mile looped course. So she did it 3 times. It was no longer an option to run because she was broken. And she said, that's it. Quite disappointed. 2 weeks later, there's another ultra that's in her backyard, close to family. 50K obstacle course. You can probably put it together which one it was. It just happened this last weekend. Well, I want to do it, and my legs have come around, and I feel fine. And it's right here. And you just DNF'd 100, which is not atypical, by the way. This is not shaming. She did a great job. We knew it was a possibility. That's not the problem. She went further than she's ever gone in a race before. I'd tell her, I'm not condoning this. You do what you need to do. But no. And I'm going to get to what I'm outlining here about the recovery cycle and all of this. Her life energy had come back. Her legs weren't sore anymore. Her easy running was fine, right? She could use her legs again and everything was good. She gets into lap 1 of this ultra and into the race, and she doesn't want to be there. Her legs are bricks. She hates her life, and she stops at the first transition. So now we have 2 DNFs in a row, right? But my body felt fine again. I'm ready to run again. I could feel, I'm fine. And then when you get out there and you get into the race, when you actually have to start pressing, I don't care if you felt fine in life, if your legs feel good, if your heart is ready to race again, you think when you actually get into the effort and you are not recovered from your previous event, you don't even know it until you're in it. And then you get in it and you go, oh my God, I'm having a horrible day.
Yep.
Well, no shit. It's been 2 weeks since you ran 75 miles. What do you think's going to happen? I don't care if you're not limping down the stairs anymore. I don't care if you got pep in your step when you're walking through the grocery store again. Your niggle and naggle and your foot blisters are healed. That doesn't mean metabolically you're ready to press again. And you're kidding yourself thinking that you are. And so I wanted to get that point across. And she knows this, right? Because we've talked. But I just want to get your take on the whole thing, big efforts after an already big effort. How do we know when we're actually ready for another one? And she found out she wasn't. She learned a great lesson that she's going to be able to apply. Her calendar is very sparse now. We are going to show up to the next one available, right? So what is your take on all of that?
Yeah, this almost piggybacks off our earlier conversation about you only have so many massive efforts in you per season or per year, and that you don't know when you've exceeded it until you have. And you generally don't feel like you're about to, and then it's gone. You see this with damaging effects with fighters. People that have great chins and are tenacious fighters, they take more fights and then more fights, and no one's ever knocked them down. And then the first time they take damage, they turn around quick to prove it wrong. The first time they get clipped, the first time they get knocked down or knocked out. Never been knocked out. It was a fluke. I cannot believe that to be true, but in the back of my mind, I'm worried, and I need to turn around and get into another fight ASAP. And they get clipped and put out by something that wouldn't have even rattled their cage the month prior. There is this recovery adaptation cycle that has to occur. And that changes for efforts, but we have to err on the side of it being complete. The bigger the effort, the more the aftercare matters. Humans are wired to need aftercare. And just because your motivation changes doesn't mean that the requirements change. And that is very difficult to deal with. You go into a race saying, I know I need a down week after this, followed by a reintroduction week, followed by a rebuilding week. And then on week 4, I can get back to real training again after a 100-mile effort. And then in week 2, your motivation changes and you get excited about something and you get life energy. And the comparison to when I was feeling terrible to now is huge. It doesn't change the fact that the original plan was sound. Your excitement does not help your body heal. It only helps your mind believe you are healed. And it is a very difficult lesson to learn. And I'm sorry that she had to learn it, but I'm glad it's in now. Because we are emotional, flighty creatures across the board. And we know the plan's right up until we get excited about something else. And then we think, I know better now than I knew before this. And now we can change it. And it rarely works well.
Well, I told her I was proud of her for pulling the plug.
Yeah.
She staunched the bleeding. She could have kept going. So I'm proud of you for DNFing this one. Like the first one, I know you were bummed about because you really wanted that 100. And I get that. This one, she was kind of joking. Like, yeah, you were right. It was basically like, haha, okay, I get it now. And she said, I'm done. I need to live to fight another day. She could have finished. Of course, she could have won her second lap, and she could have. She chose not to, so she made the right call. But it's like when you talk about we need time after a big effort like that, like metabolically and structurally even from like an output standpoint, takes so much longer to come back from than just how do I feel in my day-to-day life and in easy efforts. They couldn't even be on further planets, right? Performance ready versus like, okay, I can put my socks on now comfortably when I get up in the morning. There's so night and day difference, and people misread the two.
Yeah.
I had somebody who ran Fayetteville Ultra and he's way undertrained. He didn't start running until a month ago. Took all winter and spring off. He's like, I want to do these ultras. And I said, okay, he's a new athlete. I'm like, okay, fine. I guess if you're going to do it, let me try to help you. And he says, my legs aren't that, I feel pretty good already. Like it's like Wednesday. And he's like, I'm feeling good. I'm ready to go. I'm like, you think that, man, but will you just wait till you go for your next workout? I'm like, let's make sure we like proceed with caution here, because yes, you can go down the stairs, but no, I don't think you can press yet. So let's not press hard yet. Let's not hit a quality session today. We're going to wait till next week. You know, those things like that. And so I think you only can learn that lesson when you learn it, and
you won't know until you push the button.
You'll
like until you push the button and nothing happens and you click it again, you go, oh no. Like, just what you described with her, like, oh no, this was a mistake. And she got out of there. Like, credit to her, she got out of there.
Yeah, that's like, the button's already been pushed, mate. Who said that again?
Yeah, I believe that was Matt Murphy.
Button's already been pushed, mate. I mean, I can't press that button again right now. It's not working. That button is unavailable to me.
Trust me, right? I pushed it.
Yeah. What was my follow-up point to that? I don't know. You have something to say. Go ahead.
Well, just that is the candidate for a real pivot now. Like, you understand the damage was real. Something must be done. Like, this is vacation time. This is chase something else time. This is go after your pull-up PR or bench press or train for a triathlon or just go out of town for a week or whatever it's going to be. This is the time for a reset. Like, treat it like you just gave birth. Expect nothing out of your body for a little bit and then cautiously reintroduce it. Even if you think you're losing fitness for the time that you're doing this, fine, that's great. We're going to build it back. You did so much work prior, and that 75-mile race is going to carry you a long way fitness-wise. You're going to be okay. But we need to get rid of your internal trauma before we can move forward with being tough again.
It's just so hard to delineate. You think your internal trauma's done. You think your mind's ready, your body's ready, because the signs in day-to-day life aren't there until you realize the button's unavailable, and I'll still get it wrong. I'll go hit a quality session thinking I think I'm ready today. I had a big Saturday, but I think I can still go again Tuesday. And then I go and I'm one, and I get into it and I'm like, whoops, jump ship. This one, my body was still not recovered from my big Saturday. Like, we make those micro mistakes on a micro level. When it comes to like the ultra and long stuff like that, like I think anything like 2 hours and more where you're really racing, oof, like you got to take time. You gotta.
You said something 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago during that series. You talked about the 20-day rule, about how it really is almost 3 weeks to lose like trackable lab metric fitness. And this is where we can rely on that. We can say, okay, let's just do the 20-day thing. And maybe we cut it at 18, just like for you, for your mind. But let's just do that. A week, like what's a week to 2 weeks? In the 52-week schedule, what's 2 more weeks? If you get all 50 after this. So let's just make sure, let's lean into the 20-day thing. Take 20 days after 100. Let's try that. We saw it with elite levels. What happened with, oh my goodness. Why can't I think of his name? Hans Troyer. What happened when he tried turning around?
Oh, he got rhabdo and ended up in the hospital for a week.
Yeah, I got rhabdo again. And he finished his first ultra thinking I wasn't pushed. And I got into this next opportunity. And I know it's, what did he say? I know it's dumb. Everyone's saying I shouldn't do it. But I have this great opportunity. I don't know when it's going to come again. I got to try it. And he figured out why everyone said it was dumb. And he did it with the best of intentions and enthusiasm. And he made no excuses afterwards. All the credit to him. And now he knows. Sometimes you have to feel that. But like we are not, what are the chances we're the exception to the rule? It's just not really high.
Well, and that's exactly the point I was saying. What's my next thought? That was my next thought. We are bombarded with influences from outside. We see a man run the length of Africa, and his accolades have reached all sorts of social media on every even non-running outlet, right? You see it on ABC. Guy ran north to south and covered this. You see the guy who runs 52 marathons in 52 countries in 52 weeks. You see, I'm going to do a marathon a day for a month. You see the exceptions in our space, not so much recently because rent finally came due for her, but Chris Rogloski, who would race an ultra and then run a 3-hour race the next weekend and then do this. And you see this and you think it's possible for you, when in fact, I think a lot of these people are underperforming. They're freaks and they're fit and they're amazing. Or maybe when they race, they didn't empty the well the weekend prior, and they are still somewhat available the next week. We don't know what's really happening, but we see enough examples of it out there. Cam Hanes, keep hammering. He's running every day. I do 20 a day, and then I lift for 6 hours, and I whatever. Like, we're like, yeah, okay, so that's reasonable. Like, what if I can run an ultra 2 weeks apart? Like, no big deal. This guy ran across Africa. He did an ultra a day for a year. That's not a big deal. Wrong. And that guy also ran a 1,000,000 per mile pace. And he had to take some days down, and he wasn't racing it. So it's easy to get caught up in it. I'm saying, I'm not like pointing fingers. It's more like, yeah, I get it. Like anything is possible. Be a dreamer. You're a dreamer. But at some time, then you wake up. And it just sucks when you wake up in the middle of the race. Be like, oh, shoot, my rose tinted glasses just fell off. Yeah. This ain't so glorious anymore. Yeah.
Well, and we see all these people who are the exceptions to the rule. And sometimes their bill comes due too. And sometimes we get the wrong sense. Like Courtney races a lot, but she doesn't race as much as we think she races. It's just that she always wins and sets course records, that it feels like she's constantly in our newsfeed racing. But if you look at yourself, honestly, you'd know if you're the genetic exception to many physical rules. Like if you can look at yourself and be like, across the board, I'm always the exception. I am the freak among freaks. I know that I recover 5 times faster than everyone. I'm twice as fast as people. I do all these accomplishments that no one else can do. Like, you know if you're that person, and people tell you that you're that person. But even people like Hans, who is incredibly gifted and an exception in some of the ways, hadn't yet proved himself to be an exception to the rule. He's done great things, but he wasn't the person all along the way that was just clearly the biggest freak in any room he was in. He's highly successful. He's super likable, and he's going to have a great career. But nothing had happened yet in his world that said, I'm going to handle this just fine. And he announced it prior. I might be injured after this. He knew. And so if those people aren't the exceptions, what are the odds we're the exception? And if we're not, then what are we doing treating our recovery like we're the exception to the rule?
Well, and speaking of recovery, you can take 25 ice baths a day. You can get your Normatec boots. You can go in for cupping and deep tissue massage, and you can go back and forth from the sauna to cold water, and you can stretch and mobility your blessed little heart out. Nothing shortcuts the metabolic recovery process. Nothing. If you're looking to get ready for tomorrow because you just need to like flush, maybe you get some percentage points by doing some of these things. But talking about true metabolic and systemic recovery, you might as well not do any of it because it's going to take itself its time no matter what. I firmly believe that. You need to sleep, you need to eat, you need to drink water, and you need to live your life. And by magic of our body's processes, it will flush through the damage and adapt. It's not going to help with your dumb Normatec boots. It's not going to help by getting a deep tissue massage. You're still going to be just as unprepared 2 weeks later for that ultra than you would have been if you didn't do any of those things. I'm telling you, that's how the body works. We can't shortcut the processes. Maybe there's some biohacking out there. I don't know, but like that's my firm belief. Yeah. All that fluff, fine. Do it if it makes you feel better, but in the middle of the race, you're not going to be any more ready. No. And you'd be like, the button's still gone.
And it will make you feel better. And if you have to turn around the same day or the next day or the day after, do those things. If you're racing back-to-back weekends, do it because it will get you to the start line. But it does, like you said, it does not change you metabolically a week from now, 2 weeks from now. It'll make you think, though, that you're more recovered than you are. There's really only one way to cheat the process recovery-wise, and that is with extremely potent chemicals. That's the only way through it. That's the only way to shortcut that is by taking things that are not that are not allowed, that are prohibited in sports. The only proven way to change your actual biological recovery processes outside of just being a little bit more muscularly ready to perform the next day. Ice baths are great for that. Normatec boots, maybe not, but like tons of massage and active work. Yeah, that helps for quick turnarounds, but it doesn't change the bill. Drugs are the only thing that can change the bill.
Yep.
And that's obviously not the route you're looking to go down, hopefully.
We don't recommend that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Tour de France was rife with this, right? It wasn't so that they could crush any single stage better, although a bit of it was coming out that way. It's so that they could crush every day without consequence. That's why this was happening. It was for recovery. Yep. It's working. But that's not our world, people.
You don't want to fall victim to that trap. No. All right, so we're close here now. I feel like we got on our high horse a little bit with some of those takes, but people need to hear those things.
I'm happy with this episode,
I also
Kirk.
had Richard Diaz reach out.
Oh yeah,
I had Richard Diaz reach out because, I posted my take on 180 strides per minute and how that's not the golden rule. There's a case for increased stridence, of course, and it's typically blah, blah, blah. You can listen to the episode if you'd like. But then somebody said, oh, you better not let Diaz hear this.
And tagged him.
And they tagged him in it, of course. Yeah. Well, then Diaz heard it. And so, the sky is blue, the grass is green, 180 is the best. These are all facts, right? And so that was his comment back. And I respect Rich Diaz. He does a good job with his athletes. And so I'm kind of interested to have him on to just talk it out. We're not going to change his mind, nor do we have any ground to stand on, but I'd be curious if there'd be an interest in a spirited debate there with a guest interview. We haven't had an argumentative guest interview in quite some time. So
no, because we don't do debates, but this could be we usually just have them come on, do their spiel. And if people are interested in it, follow up on it. And if they're not, well, you already know what we stand for. But now that he's already been on and we've already talked about it, it could be interesting to have maybe a debate or maybe just a round table or a triangle table, whatever that would be with a 3-person panel. I'd be up for it.
Cool. Well, we had Ian Hosick on back in the day talking about the validity of compromised running for OCR. And then we ended up having a nice conversation and just riffing about it, right? We were going to go there and clash heads. And then we're all like, oh, we kind of look at this through the same lens. Our lens is just has a different shade to it.
Right.
We're same, right? And I'm sure it'd be the case with Rich, but
I don't.
all
I
right,
actually
we're
am
gonna
not
wrap
sure
this
of that.
thing.
I'm sure it would not be that way.
You're not-
Rich is old school. He's going to sit there with his scotch and his cigar, and he's going to say, "Take a lap, kid," and that's going to be okay.
And he's earned that right.
Yeah.
He's earned that right.
Yeah.
How's I going to end this? Oh, guys, please, like the 20th most listened to podcast out of a bunch of post-Bachelor losers based on ratings and reviews. Like, we can do better than that. Oh my gosh, we can do better than that. I was last on the list, guys. This long list, and it was just little sad, the running public taking up the caboose of this list. We need some ratings and reviews, and I know some of you listening have not. So now the episode's over. Stop. Oh, what a gift it would be for us. So that's how I want to bookend this thing.
And Bachelor Nation, for those of you tuning in now for the first time, stay tuned for next week. You won't believe what happens in minute 20.
See ya.